Cutting contact isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a shift, one where the power moves from her hands to yours. Most men go silent hoping she notices. But notice what? An absence that's just empty? Silence without substance is forgettable. But when you vanish with intent, when you disappear and evolve, you don't fade. You echo. You don't just leave. You leave her wondering. And that's where the chase begins. The moment you cut contact, you're not going invisible. You're going internal. While most men wait for a sign, a message, some hint that she misses them, you're building. Quietly, powerfully. She expects you to miss her. She expects you to reach back out first. But instead you vanish into self-discipline, into silence that builds tension. That silence doesn't say, I'm hurt. It says, I'm becoming. You see, women don't chase men who disappear. They chase the man who transforms while he's gone. That transformation doesn't start with a haircut or a gym selfie. It starts when you stop reacting and start redirecting. You shift the focus inward. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects her decisions back at her. And every day you don't reach out, that mirror gets harder to ignore. If you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming the man they can't ignore, subscribe now and hit the bell. This is just the beginning. At first, she won't admit it. She'll scroll past your name. She'll pretend it doesn't sting. But late at night, when everything else fades, she'll feel the shift. The man who used to orbit her is no longer in her gravitational pull. And that absence, it's louder than words. It challenges her ego. Not because you said something, but because you said nothing at all. This is where most men fail. They get anxious, impatient. They mistake silence for defeat. But a man who truly understands his worth knows that silence is not weakness, it's power. When you don't react, don't reach out, and don't explain, you're not disappearing. You're creating mystery. You're making her wonder, making her question what went wrong, and more importantly, what you're doing now without her. She starts checking your social media, expecting the usual posts, the passive quotes, the throwback pictures, the vague sadness. But instead, she finds silence. Or better yet, growth. A post of you hitting the gym, laughing with friends, focused. You're not trying to show her anything. You're just being. And that calm, steady evolution, it drives her wild. Because now you're no longer the man she walked away from. You're becoming the man she fears losing for good. This is when the tables begin to turn. You're no longer in the shadows of her attention. You're in her thoughts, loud, persistent, confusing. She doesn't understand why she keeps checking for you, why your absence feels heavier than your presence ever did. It's because you're no longer reacting. You're leading. And your silence, backed by undeniable progress, speaks louder than 1,000 texts ever could. This isn't ghosting. This is rebirth. Now she's starting to replay everything. The last conversation. The look you gave her before you left. The tone of your voice when you said you needed time. She's decoding moments, searching for meaning, and it's driving her crazy. Because you didn't give her closure. You didn't give her chaos. You gave her the unknown. And that, to a woman used to attention, is the most magnetic silence of all. And while she's trapped in that loop, you're evolving. Quietly, powerfully. You're not texting her. You're not checking her story. You're building. Not to impress her, but to reclaim yourself. Every morning workout, every focused hour, every boundary you set. These are bricks in the foundation of the man she won't be able to ignore. Because what she doesn't expect is the version of you that rises in her absence. She remembers the version of you who needed closure, who sought validation, who waited for a reply. But now, you're not waiting. You're not asking questions. You're not available. And that shift, it unsettles her. Because women are intuitive. They feel when energy detaches, when presence disappears. And when the man they thought would chase is now the one calmly walking away, their ego trembles. But here's what really triggers the chase: uncertainty. Not the toxic kind, but the type that makes her question everything. You're not posting cryptic quotes. You're not playing mind games. You're simply focused, grounded, progressing. She scrolls through your stories and sees glimpses, not desperation, confidence, presence, a man who's in motion. She starts wondering, did I misjudge him? Has he outgrown me? Who is he becoming without me? That uncertainty grows because she no longer has emotional access to you. You're not liking her posts. You're not replying to her stories. You're not orbiting her like every other guy. You're silent, but not absent. You're building. That silence is a vacuum, and human nature hates a vacuum. She'll fill it with curiosity, with longing, with regret. She'll start reaching out, not because you forced it, but because she can't help it. When she does reach out, you don't rush to respond. You don't throw her a lifeline of validation. You keep calm, collected, short. That delayed response, that's power. It signals that your time is no longer freely available, that your focus has shifted inward. You're no longer emotionally accessible, and that scarcity makes you valuable. In her eyes, you've become unpredictable, and unpredictability is magnetic. Now she's wondering who you've become, who you're spending time with, what's changed in you. And here's the truth. You don't need to explain a thing. Let her imagination do the chasing. Because once a woman starts imagining your life without her, especially when that life looks strong, stable, and unbothered, curiosity transforms into desire. That's when the chase begins. Not because you manipulated her, but because you elevated yourself. She scrolls through your stories and sees a version of you she barely recognizes. Calm, focused, magnetic. You post less, but when you do, it says more. You're not flashing status. You're revealing growth, a quiet confidence. You're not saying, look at me. You're saying, I don't need to be seen. And that, ironically, is what draws her in deeper. Because now you're not the man waiting for her approval. You're the man she hopes notices her again. And when she finally reaches out, maybe with a simple hey or a nostalgic, I was thinking about you, you don't jump. You pause. You let that message sit for an hour, maybe two. Not out of spite, but because you're genuinely focused. Then, when you do reply, it's brief, centered. You say something like, hope you're well, been locked in lately. No flirtation, no emotional unraveling, just enough to show presence, not pursuit. And that restraint, that subtle detachment, it's the very thing that lights the fire in her again. She starts wondering why you're not asking her questions, why you're not leaning into the conversation like before. The silence between your replies feels heavier than it used to, and that shift unsettles her in the best way, because she realizes she's no longer the center of your universe. You're not orbiting her anymore. You've become your own gravitational force, and now she's the one drifting back toward you, pulled not by your words, but by your absence, not by desperation, but by the man you've become in the quiet. By now, she doesn't just want you back. She needs to understand how she lost her grip. The man she once took for granted is no longer emotionally available, no longer reactive, no longer hers. And that's exactly what makes her chase. Because in your silence, you found strength. In your distance, you built mystery. In your detachment, you created desire. You didn't need to convince her. You just had to become the man she can't forget, the man she has to pursue. Because now, the only way back in is if you allow it. And here's the twist most men never see coming. By the time she starts chasing you, you've evolved so far past who you were. Her validation doesn't even hit the same. You're no longer the man craving her attention. You've become the man choosing what deserves yours. That shift, that power, it's not about getting her back. It's about realizing you never needed her to begin with. The chase was never the goal. Becoming untouchable, that was. Because when you've done the work, built your frame and cut the emotional dependency, she senses it. Not in your words, but in your energy. That's when she reappears. Not because you begged, but because you vanished. Not as the same man who was left behind, but as the version of yourself who doesn't ask, doesn't explain, doesn't wait. You let her feel the loss without announcement, and now, you are the one she can't stop thinking about. Not because you chased, because you didn't have to.